Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will be discussing exploring entrepreneurship, how to convert an idea that you may have into a business, and how to shift your mindset from being an employee maybe to entrepreneurial mindset, and what would that really entail. There are effective and practical approaches that you could do starting today with what you have. This program is designed for those who are maybe not in a place where they have resources to access. So limited resources, limited information, limited ways to start a business. This is designed for you. How did we get here? Is by working ourselves in that space, as well as supporting thousands of entrepreneurs throughout many countries, over 100 of them all over the world. We learned and we saw and we observed what would it really take to make that work. So with that being said, let's just dive in. Thank you for being with us, of course, and thank you for making the time. I'd love to see just in the chat, just, what's your business? What's your idea stage? If you're on idea stage, what's your first name? If there's one word to describe you, what would that be today? And if there's anything specific you would like to get out of today's session, I'd love to hear from you. What would you like to get out of today's session? I'm your host, Faris Salami. I'm the founder of International Strategic Management and also the co-author of Exploring Entrepreneurship. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm originally from Palestine, raised in Kuwait, and came to the US during the first Gulf War. When I first came to the US, I started a few businesses, and still today we have a new business. My first business was a t-shirt business in the early 90s. I learned how to wholesale and beauty supplies, and then I learned how to do some limousine driving and do some e-commerce in the late 90s. And then I joined Macy's department stores and was part of their executive team, helped them turn around some of their stress stores. And then I joined another backed venture by venture capital, so a small startup that was buying and acquiring mom and pop shop in the retail space and then converting to corporate stores. And then in 2003, founded International Strategic Management with a focus on supporting entrepreneurs, mainly in underserved communities or underrepresented communities, minority groups, supporting them by providing support to organizations that works with them directly. I don't want to bore you with the details of these numbers. You could obviously go to our website and see more of them. We've touched over 100 countries with our programs, and we've had thousands of entrepreneurs that have come through the different programs that we have, and we've coached and trained people by the thousands. Here's a sample of some of the companies that you might recognize. Clearly, there are thousands of others that you would never recognize. Some of them are startups in small little towns, and some of them are large, as you can see here. Most of our work has been really on working with groups of individuals of organization that supports the entrepreneurs. So if you think of an economic development agency, city economic development, an incubator, an accelerator, a business center, we usually work with them to launch programs in their communities and sometimes draft new programs or utilize some of our existing programs to deploy immediately, leveraging the resources that we have. So the entrepreneurs usually interact with us through one of these channels, sometimes directly, mainly with these channels to deliver a program. We've been very blessed to be able to do that in many countries throughout the world. Many times we're even blessed earlier before they launch a program, helping them design and understand what is the community's needed to deploy a program in that community. Many times they usually come to us after they've identified few ideas that they want to explore of what programs would make sense. And because of our depth in these programs, we're able to guide the organizations on what program makes best sense for them based on their entrepreneurs and the entrepreneur stage. All right, so you can see on the map where we've touched, so I'm going to move forward from that. And I just want to make sure that I mention this because a lot of times people say, oh, this is awesome. I just want to make sure that I also put a limitation to this awesomeness because this experience have come from being part of globalization setting around the entrepreneurship, around technology, around education, around the community. So it's limited to that experience with that of how we are going to be speaking on. All right. So let's just get started. So what I'd like you to do is take a minute, it's 25 seconds exact, and I'd love for you to just stare at this, light bulb that we have right now. Just take 25 seconds and stare. I'm going to put a timer for 25 seconds so you can stare at it. And once we stare, we're going to talk about what's going to happen next. All right. So I hope now that you stared, you could look it through this, my white screen, and I'm hoping you see what I wanted you to see. If you do see it, that's great. If you don't see it, that means you didn't stare strong enough for 25 seconds, but that's okay. We'll give you a chance to do that another time. So I'm hoping that you understand that that's really what it feels like to be an entrepreneur, right? To be starting a business or to be having an idea that could potentially be a business. Is you have this imaginary thing that you're like to see come to light. And in the same time, you're getting other people excited to see it to come to light. And that takes a lot of energy. How do you do that, especially if you have no resources? Well, we all have known and know how to do this, right? Many times people tell you, well, what is your business plan? And I will not discount that a business plan sometimes can be helpful, but I also don't want to discount that sometimes most entrepreneurs we've worked with never had a business plan to start a business. What they mostly had is what I call it a plan for the business, but not necessarily a business plan. Now, having a business plan formally can help you apply for funding. So a lot of times, if you're looking for funding or for partners or for organization support or for others to support you, having a business plan comes handy. If you don't have a business plan for your own sanity, you might want to plan for your business. And I've seen some of these plans as little as 2 to 3 pages or a one pager, and as high as, I think the most I've ever read a business plan was maybe over 1,000 pages. It was a medical device company. Now, I mentioned that not to brag in a way, I'm mentioning that so you could understand the knowledge that comes with writing a business plan versus planning a business. Writing a business plan, as you can imagine, and yes, you're welcome to share your thoughts, of course, in the chat anytime. Writing a business plan, what does that really mean? Well, it probably has a specific structure, right? Usually it has a background information. You can see through the slides. What's the problem? What's the opportunity, right? What is your real solution? What is the product or service you're going to be offering to these customers? Where are you going with this product? What's the market size and what does it look like for that, right? How do you plan to enter this market, right? How do you do that? Do you have a team that's going to support you? Do you have any money that you could use to make this work? How are you going to make any money doing this? Have you done anything so far to get here? What are you planning to do next to get there next? And if you're needing some money, what do you need to do with the money that I'm going to give you to get you there? That's usually what I'm going to call the characteristics of a business plan. And usually that requires someone to go in and pitch or present this plan. A plan for the business may have some of these characteristics, but they're really looking at maybe a little bit less structure and more about those specific information. Again, please remember, no right or wrong, and don't discount one or the other. It's just two different ways to approaching, running a business. Now, I mentioned that because you might think, well, Ferris, I have no resources to do any of this stuff. I just want to get started. Fantastic. Thanks for taking us there. So it does start with a mindset, and I'm borrowing this from one of our other programs, which is the Resilient Entrepreneur Canvas. And we're really in that program, we're talking about the mindset, the self, the business, and the moving forward, and what would it take to make those things work. And what we've discovered is the mindset is really the first component of all the action that could follow from it. So if your mindset is not clear, most likely the actions won't be clear. So now let's go back and ask with the first question. So what does it really mean to be an entrepreneur? What does it really mean to have this idea that you want to make a business? I would love to hear your thoughts. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? In the chat, you could welcome to go ahead and just type your answers or your thoughts on that, or in a piece of paper, on your notebook, whatever you like. Just go ahead and just write down some ideas. When you hear the word entrepreneur, what comes to your mind? What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And don't worry, I've heard all kinds of answers from you. Unless you put payroll on your credit card, you're not an entrepreneur. Unless you slept on a couch, you're not an entrepreneur. Unless you're a rest taker, you're not an entrepreneur. And unless you've done X, Y, or Z, unless you do this, you got to be visionary. You got to be this. And I've heard all kinds of answers for that. And of course, there's a definition in the dictionary. I am not going to bore you with that answer because you could go and read that answer yourself. In general, most of us educators or individuals who support entrepreneurs, at least most, not all, agree to that today, entrepreneurship from our perspective is more of a mindset. How do you think? How do you look at things? And the symptoms of that, or the foundations of that, I'm going to say, is really simple. What problem are you solving, or what opportunity are you creating? That's really the basic foundations of that premise of what an entrepreneur is. They see something that they want to fix, or they see an opportunity that they want to create, or they want to leverage, or they want to offer. And based on that foundation, all the other components can be built around it. And I mentioned that to you because it's important to understand how you could leverage that with you having a resource or not. So when I say I was an entrepreneur, and yes, I respect all the other answers, risk taker, visionary, all of the things that we just mentioned, passionate. The truth is, I've met entrepreneurs from all across the pathways, and some of them had those characteristics and many did not. And to bust that myth is one way for you to look at it, is just start asking the people who are actually running the businesses. Don't ask the people who would like to one day run a business. Just go start talking to people who are running businesses today. Excuse me. And please don't focus on one industry or another. I've been blessed to work with over 100 types of industries and all kinds of different entrepreneurs doing technology-based entrepreneurship, we're going to call that, or technology-enabled entrepreneurs, as well as I'm going to call them place-based entrepreneurs. They work in a place specifically, a retail shop, a coffee shop, a restaurant, right? And then, of course, I'm going to add a third component, service industry. They provide a cleaning service, maybe. They provide some type of service for a business. The right business plan like we do, right? We offer a service. It's a training service. We offer a training that's, or consulting or strategy sessions. These are services. They're not necessarily a product driven or technology driven. Now, we might be technology enabled. We're using Zoom today. We have a Hopin. We have a few other platforms that we use, classrooms online that we utilize, and tools online that we utilize to help you do some of the work. But we're not fundamentally focused on creating a technology that's going to solve a problem or putting an office somewhere. So these 3 or 4 different categories sell an entrepreneurs. Each one of these individuals will have a different answer. Each person, based on their background, if they're coming from underserved community or underrepresented community or immigrant or minority groups, or if they're coming from a privileged community, they will have different answers for it. Also, if they're looking for technology-based entrepreneurship, those who support them, they're going to be looking for specific characteristics for that individual. I'm disregarding all of those today and saying an entrepreneur, from my perspective, is someone that who sees a mindset of, I see a problem, I want to solve it, or I see an opportunity, I want to create. That's what we're talking about here. So that mindset comes with those ideas of what you could look for in the marketplace. Now, please note that there's no right or wrong answer from my perspective. And the idea would be is for you to explore it so you can kind of understand what's happening in this space. So how does the mindset works? Well, you identify that opportunity or you identify that problem. It could be that the community is needing a coffee shop. It could be that the community needing some type of restaurant that maybe they're not offering today a specific type of food. Or there is food, but it's just not being cooked in a certain way that you like. I always tell people, be cautious about saying what exists or doesn't exist. Just because you are not aware, it doesn't mean that it does not exist. Even in small little towns, I'm always surprised that someone claims that this thing doesn't exist. And then someone in the back, usually through our programs, we've heard them say, oh, you just described my brother's shop or my sister's shop. Have you been to this place? No, well, they've been operating for like 4 years. Where have you been? So a lot of times you just may not be aware that those things exist. So please just understand identifying the opportunity or the problem. Then you want to think about, and remember, we're discussing this from the concept that you have no resources to start, right? So how do you explore entrepreneurship with no resources? You have an idea, you see a problem, you see a solution, you see something, and now you want to discover it. So first you identify what that is. Then you identify what you have to solve that challenge, right? Experience, network, knowledge, whatever that period things that you think you have to support it. Then you want to think about, are you missing anything? Do you need a location for that? Do you have to write codes for that? Whatever that case is. So step 1, you identify it. Step 2, you start thinking about This is where I want to be or not? Do I want to be in a retail store? Do I want to be in a technology space? Do I want to be providing a service to someone? Think through those. Then you want to see, are you missing anything? Is there something else you need? Do you need another person to help you or support you or to provide the service with you? Then I'm going to say start with what I call startup mode versus scale up mode. Some of the things that sometimes the reason why people never start is because they're always thinking of the scale first. Well, you can't scale if you don't start. So you got to start first. Start the business first. Figure it out as you go. Now, please disregard me if you have millions of dollars or billions of dollars that you could deploy today, because you could just start testing based on the money that you spend and see how it works. I don't know how that works. I only have worked most of my life with entrepreneurs who are limited with their resources, their time, the people that they know or the network that they have, and then the money. So I'm going from that fundamental basis that if you are limited with your time, limited with your cash, limited with the network that you have, you want to start with this, I'm going to call it startup mode. You could call it pilot. So once you think that way, you start piloting things and you say, I'm going to offer this service to this smaller group of people and see how it works. If they buy or not buy, then I could shift it. If they do buy, then I should keep going more. If they don't buy, I shift it to a different groups, or I shift my product or service, or I modify it. Steve Blank, I thought his definition of a startup is pretty close to what I think reality is based on that, which is you're in search of your business model. You don't really know yet how you're going to make money. You don't really know yet what exactly your business is going to end up doing. You have some ideas, you have some intentions, and you have some good thoughts, but you don't really know the exact details. So that's what you're doing here. You're starting with a small startup, and you're starting with a startup mode, meaning I'm going to start small, I'm going to pilot, and I'm going to adjust. If I feel like I need to adjust something, I'm going to make modification. So one example of that, we had an entrepreneur who was making soap. So rather than making 20 different thousand types of soap, I said, let's make 1 to 3 that you feel strongly compelling to you. I did find the problem. Problem is people like handmade soap. What I like doing is making soap in these 3 different scents or 5 scents that I really enjoy, right? Lining it with what I love. Then identifying what's missing is, well, I'd love to have, like shampoo and skincare and all this stuff, but right now I don't need it, but I'm missing maybe some wax that I need to get access to, whatever that is, right? Then you start with a small patch. And she actually, in this one example, she started with a small patch, made maybe 50 or 100 of them, and went and did a pop-up and sold them all. And then realized that all of my customers came from women that were similar situation to who I am. In this case, she had a specific scenario for her life and where she was with her personal life that other people seem to connect to and relate to and feel like they would like to support. So that's what she did. She piloted. Then she adjusted some of the scents because some scents didn't do as well as she thought. Well, she ended up selling them. It just didn't do as much as she thought she would. And then she repeated that. And then that's how you really start. So remember, as you do all this stuff, while you might have ideas about what your customers should or should not do, engaging them in the conversation is really important by asking the questions. Now, you don't want to have a 50-hour, work session survey discussion with your customers because they most likely can't do that with you. But most likely you could do a couple of minutes or few questions here and there. And as you collect data and you start analyzing it, you start becoming more familiar with what your customers like or not like, or want to do or not do. So think through that with the entrepreneurship mindset as you're exploring it. So first, identify the opportunity or the problem. Second, align it with your personal vision or mission or life or passion in life. I'm not saying that it has to always be aligned, but try to see if it's aligned. And many times, by the way, entrepreneurs started without that alignment initially. And then with time, they either aligned or they moved on to a different business, and that's okay. All I'm trying to do is to minimize all the rest that could go if it's not aligned right up front. And then think about what is missing and when do you need it and how do you need it if needed. And then think about starting as a startup versus a scale up. And again, remember, when I use this term right here, I always will remind people, please disregard if you have unlimited money and unlimited resources as far as network or people or things to make it deployed, because you probably could test it then your own way, the way you want to do it. But if you are limited, this is where I mentioned I work with mainly those entrepreneurs, and they had to start with a small startup scale versus scaling up and trying to make sure it works right away from day one. And then you want to pilot, you want to adjust, and you want to repeat. I hope that this gives you an idea of how to start converting your idea into a business. So now that I gave you the specific steps, I want to take a step even deeper and say, how do you even identify and articulate that idea? I'm going to start with that one. What's the opportunity or what's the problem that you're solving? What opportunity are you creating or what problem are you solving? And I want you to think about this in the concept of, opportunity, meaning that it's a vitamin pill. You forgot to take your vitamins today, so I will make a pill for you. If you forgot to eat your fruit or vegetables, you can take this pill. A problem mean I have a headache and I'm in pain right now and I need something to relieve it. Excuse me. Well, now I have an ibuprofen for you that could solve that problem, right? So that's what I mean by a problem or an opportunity. Now, if you're new to this stuff, you want to start digging a little deeper, right? So first thing you want to do, once you identify that, you go to the second step, which is industry targets, right? So understanding where's the industry going? Is it a growing industry? Is it a shrinking industry? And by the way, even shrinking industries many times have even bigger opportunities than a growing industry, because while everybody's flocking to leave, you sticking around and figuring out what customers really want and who needs it could potentially be much more lucrative, rewarding business than if you were going after where all the waves are going to. I'm not telling you right or wrong, I'm just bringing that up to your attention. So industry targets, understand where the industry is going, what's happening in the industry, what's bubbling up, what's the discussion. And then I'm going to call it start peeling the onions, right? So just don't take the surface words, dig deeper, meet with people who are in the industry, talk to people who are around the industry. Now, remember, it doesn't have to be just the people that are in it, around it, familiar with it, that knows nothing about it. It's all part of your discovery as you continue to peel that onion. Now, I will mention this because when I said that last time, I had few people who were researchers, and I was cautious because now I'm thinking they could probably spend the next 20 years peeling the onion. It will never be done. We're talking about starting a business and converting it from an idea to a business. You can't do that. You got to peel the onion really fast, maybe a day, maybe two, maybe a week, maybe two, maybe a month, maybe two. But at one point, you got to start. Okay, so don't keep peeling. Peel enough to learn enough to move forward, and then peel again as you continue moving forward. Then as you're peeling these onions, I want you to think about, look for patterns, right? Look for see, is there something that keeps repeating? Every 7 years, people seem to leave their houses. All right, why are they leaving their houses? Well, roughly every 7 years, the kids are now, if they had no kids, now they have kids, and now they're looking for school districts. All right, I see a trend now. Once people are leaving their homes, once they have a kid, generally speaking, 7 years later, they move to a new house. Why? Because they're looking for a school district specifics for their kid. Got it. Well, that's a pattern, right? So now you can start projecting what's going to happen with new homeowners with kids or without kids. So I don't want to tell you what to do or not to do, but I want you to look for those patterns to see what's happening. This, if you're in the car industry, right, we all know that roughly every 3 to 4 years, they change the look of the car. That's a pattern, right? So now if you're designing something that goes on these cars from the outside or from the inside, you need to be aware that every 3 to 4 years, those looks change. So what do you do to make sure that your product or service are aware of those things and be ready for those changes? And then what I will say is start creating, don't try to jump. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. And if you do, just be careful. Just try to take baby steps, right? And one of the things I liked, one of the books I read before, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, talks about you don't have to quit your job today to start a business. You could start today with what you have and generating enough business from what your business side hustle, let's just call it for now, and make it a business with time. And then when that becomes a business that generates enough money for you to leave your job, it makes you even maybe more money than your job, then go ahead and jump ships. Some people might disagree with that methodology. So if you're not committed 100% from day one, then go for it. Then you can't do it. Well, remember, I'm worked with only individuals who had no resources, meaning that if they didn't have a job to pay their bills, most likely they became homeless or no place to stay. So I want to be cautious with that. I'm not going to tell you you should or shouldn't do, but I just want you to be thinking about that when we're discussing this baby steps that you're taking. At one point, you got to push, and in the beginning, maybe baby steps would work for you. Then I will say, it's okay to make a mistake. If you don't make mistakes today while you're doing these baby steps, you're going to make mistakes later. And the one thing I will guarantee you, the minute you start a business, that you're going to make mistakes. As a matter of fact, this is why I like to call entrepreneurship is a practice. It's a practice. The symptoms could look the same, everything looks the same, but based on the circumstances, the timing or whatever, it might be different today. And I use that today with COVID. If you went to the doctor a year ago in February and said, I'm coughing, I have a cold, they would have told you have a cold and we'll go back home and take some medicine. Today, if you do that, same sentences, very similar. They're going to say, wait a second, we need to take a test for COVID, and there you might end up being in the hospital. There are all kinds of things that change today based on that same symptoms, but just different circumstances. So I want to make sure that you understand entrepreneurship is pretty much the same. You could learn from the past, but you can't avoid making mistakes. You can try to avoid making the same mistakes, but you have to be open that it's going to be some new mistakes made. Make them, adjust from them, learn from them, and think about what resources do you have to help you avoid some of them. Being part of this work today, I'm hoping that this will eliminate some of these, painful points that you might go through. Is it going to eliminate all of them? Absolutely not. And if it did, you probably didn't start. So start running the business, you'll run into some challenges. But I'm hoping the way you're thinking and the way we're discussing things today will allow you to think through that. So please think through and find those resources that could support you making those mistakes and adjusting from them. And then the last two things I'm going to say is keep going, right? The key with any business today that exists today, that they never stopped. Things might have stopped, customers might have stopped, people might have stopped, timing might have stopped for their industry, but they never stopped from doing the things that they felt is important. So keep moving with that. And then of course, the last is keep adapting. You don't want to be an industry that is fading away from doing something and you continue to just say, I'm going to keep offering it no matter what, because someone's going to buy it. Well, that's true, but maybe someone who's going to buy it is no longer in your space. Now they're in a different state or a different country. So you got to be able and open to adapting what's happening around you. As you clearly can see, we could spend more days and more time on each one of them. What I'd like you to do is please share with us in the chat one thing that you could do today with what you learned from us today. For what you could do today to convert your business or your idea into a business. What can you start doing right now, immediately? All right. And of course, feel free to ask any questions that you may have as you're doing that. So please take a minute and write down one thing that you could do today to make and convert your idea into a business. One thing. As I close this and bring it together, I want to tell you, thank you, first of all, for being here with us. I want to say, I appreciate your commitment to your ideas and your business, and I appreciate you being with us here today. I want to also encourage you to take actions and just make it happen. And, I also mentioned talk is cheap, action is not, because it costs time, money, or both. And also energy. So all kinds of other stuff that could cost you. And I want you to be thinking about entrepreneurs usually are action driven. I also want to say, leverage the resource that you have versus not having them. So you don't want to be one of those entrepreneurs that occasionally we meet. Well, I don't have this, I don't have that. Well, that's fine. That's why maybe you never started. But what do you have that you could start with today? What can you do with what you have today? You don't have all the resources. Can you write a business plan? You don't have all the planning tools to write a business plan. Can you plan for your business? You don't have any plan for your, can you start with talking to customers? What can you do starting today, right now with what you have? And then of course, you want to, be thankful when you make a mistake rather than being, harmful, saying, I just made this big mistake. Well, we're all going to make mistakes. Just be kind to yourself making those mistakes. And please remember, nothing will ever be perfect. As a matter of fact, if it is perfect, it most likely does not exist. Took a minute for a silence because I want to say that again. If it's perfect, most likely it does not exist. We so far as human have not made anything perfect, right? So there's always going to be something that's missing. You just got to do it. You got to feel really good about it. And it doesn't mean that it can be an A++ product or an A grade product. I'm just saying it just can't be perfect. Okay. So I understand the need of wanting to make something good. It just can't be perfect. So remember that as you start your business. And then, be ready to keep doing it again and again and again and again. Clearly, we could spend 2 more hours on all these discussions today and each one of these topics that we discovered. And we do have a program, obviously, that we can do that in. And we have several programs we can do that in. I just want to take this minute and say, please make sure that you leave today with some action steps. So I said the first question I asked you earlier, what's one thing that you could do today with what you learned? And now we could say, what 3 things you could do to make this work for you? Could be reading a book, could be connecting with more entrepreneurs that were on this call. It could be that you follow up with us. It could be that you attend some other training. Whatever that case is, just think about what are those 3 action steps that you're going to do starting today. I want to say thank you for being here. Please know that you can visit our website for additional programs that we offer in addition to this. Our Resilient Entrepreneur Program is a program we offer right now in 3 other languages, and we would love to see opportunities to explore that with you. We, of course, also another organization that offer Kaufman Fast Track, a business planning tool that could help you write a business plan. And we have all kinds of other programs like Exploring Entrepreneurship, Growth Wheel, and 20 others. So please visit our website and let's find a way to stay engaged with this conversation about your business. I'll take this, leave it open for final thoughts. And, clearly I could keep speaking for the next 3 hours, but I thought spending some time answering your questions or engaging with you would be much more meaningful. For those who would like to stay in touch, please feel free to take a picture. Well, don't take a picture, bring your camera up and it should download for you my contact information. And the last thing, of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please scan this again with your camera and it should take you to a page that allows you to provide feedback, things you like, things you don't like, anything else you want us to talk about or you want us to change. I appreciate all your feedback. And if you like this, please share your work, share with the world. And we'd love to stay in conversation with you. Thanks for being with us today. Have a great day.